Gen X was the guinea pig for the modern day retirement system. And while some of us are doing just fine, many of us were put at a disadvantage right from the start. This is part one in a two-part series, and today I'm going to paint a picture of what it was like for Gen Xers to launch into adulthood. In the next video, I will cover how Gen X is sabotaging their own retirements today. So exactly how did we get left behind? Let's start with the biggest shift Gen X faced, the rise of the 401k. Okay, so the first point I want to make is that we were truly pioneers of the 401k revolution. I started my first part-time job in 1983, and that was with Kmart. Remember them? Now that's when I first started hearing about some sort of retirement savings plan. I'm not even sure it was called a 401k, in the circles that I was traveling in. Now I worked for that same retailer and went into management with them later for 13 years. And I'll just say that the HR department, they didn't know much about it. I mean, it was brand new to everyone at that time. All I was told was to put money in it, and you're not supposed to take it out until you retire or quit. And this is all when I was 17 years old. Now, fast forward, I'm almost 30 years old. I changed employers. What did I do with the 401k from my previous employer? Well, I needed a car really bad, so I cashed it out and bought that car. So I start with this new employer, and they're like, here you go. Here's a form. Fill it out. You've got 90 days, and we'll enroll you in our 401k. That was about the gist of it. There was no automatic enrollment. You had to opt in. There were no target date funds. Now, I share this story because I feel like it has to be a common one. Unless you worked for a huge company that took an interest in educating their employees about financial education, or maybe you worked for a financial business, who were we supposed to ask about this? Who were we supposed to go to for our questions? There was no internet. Couldn't ask my parents about it. They'd never heard of a 401k before. My dad worked for a company that would supply him with a pension in his retirement. He need not worry about these things. So Gen X was thrown into this new system without much guidance at all. And by the time many of us figured it out, we'd already lost valuable saving years. Okay, point number 2, the tax trap. Were we sucker punched? Now, we thought we were doing everything right, maxing out our 401ks, but no one told us about the massive tax bill that would be waiting for us when we retired. That $500,000 401k balance is not really $500,000. It's whatever's left after the IRS takes its cut. Now, if you're in the 12% tax bracket, you're already down to $440,000. But what if tax rates go up? You're losing even more. Now, younger generations have Roth IRAs and even Roth 401ks to balance out their pre-tax and post-tax savings. But for most of our working years, these options were not available. We had one option, an option where all the kinks hadn't been worked out yet. Okay, point number 3 that I want to make is the credit card trap. The moment I stepped on my college campus in 1985, I was pre-approved for a brand new Discover card. Now, I was making around $5,000 a year working part-time at Kmart. This brand new card opened up a whole new world to me. But, of course, I came to find out that it wasn't as rosy as I thought. But at the time, it seemed like such a grown-up thing to do, having these credit cards in your wallet. By my mid-20s, I had several credit cards, and I could barely make the minimum payments on them. I was using credit to buy gas and groceries. By 30, my credit was wrecked. I couldn't get approved for anything, and it took me years to fix the damage. Do I blame a lack of financial literacy on this as well? Yes. Our parents didn't deal with this. My parents had a mortgage, a car loan, and a Sears credit card that they used just to buy a new washing machine if the old one broke, or a new refrigerator. And that was it. We, on the other hand, we were handed credit cards like they were candy, with zero education on how to handle them responsibly, and not really any examples to show us the dark side of credit either. So by the time I finally got out of credit card debt, I was years behind on saving for my retirement. And I know I wasn't alone, because this was the financial reality of an entire generation, my generation. Okay, point number 4 that I want to make is bye-bye pensions. Remember when a job meant security for life? Pensions were the reason for that. Work at the same company for decades, retire, and receive a monthly check for the rest of your life. But by the time we entered the workforce, that deal was disappearing fast. And whether it was for better or for worse, the transition was abrupt, it was final, and the new 401k could give us no past historical reference to model by. Corporations saw pensions as a huge money drain, so they phased them out, replaced them with 401ks, shifting the financial risk and responsibility upon us. Suddenly, your retirement wasn't something that your employer guaranteed. You had to figure it out yourself. Now, pensions gave people security, but it was at a cost. I mean, many people stayed in jobs they hated for fear of losing their pension. But for Gen X, that choice was gone. We had freedom, but at the cost of financial uncertainty. With a pension, you never had to worry about outliving your money. With a 401k, we're constantly asking ourselves, do we have enough? Will my savings last? What if I run out before I die? No one handed us a playbook for this. And also, another common modern-day retirement problem is, how do I create a monthly paycheck out of this huge 401k balance? Now, 401ks were supposed to be great because they were portable, that you didn't have to stay with one job all your life. But for me, they were too easy to cash out. Every time I changed jobs, I saw my 401k as an emergency fund. I would tell myself, I need this to buy a car. I need this to pay off my credit card debt. And just like that, I was back at square one. So yes, we can point out the disadvantages of pensions, but there are definite pros. And these advantages weren't replaced when 401ks came along. Okay, my 5th point is the student loan trap. At 18, I walked into a bank, filled out a whole lot of forms, and I walked out with thousands of dollars at my disposal in the form of a student loan. Gen X was the first generation to step into a whole new world of financial burden. Now, I attended a state university, so tuition was supposed to be affordable. But even with my part-time job at Kmart at the time, there was no way I could come close to covering all of it. And no, my parents didn't offer to pay for my college education, and it never even occurred to me to expect or ask them to. And I realize that Gen X isn't the hardest hit generation when it comes to student loans. That would probably belong to the millennials, because higher education has more than tripled in the last few decades. But once again, Gen X was poised to be confronted with a whole new way of adulting, one that our previous generations had no experience with. At 18, we were signing our names on student loans and credit cards like it was nothing. We had no idea we were locking ourselves into years of financial stress. Thinking about it now, it actually seems crazy to me at how normal it seemed at the time. So when financial gurus talk about how you should be saving for your retirement starting in your 20s, you can be a millionaire by the time you're 40, I get a little sad. And I have a little bit of regret that I didn't do it that way. I wasn't saving anything in my 20s and 30s. I was just trying to survive, paycheck to paycheck. Now, as a bonus point, I want to include something else. It didn't originate in the 80s as the previous 5 points did, but it was something that hit Gen X particularly hard, and that was the 2008 housing and financial crisis. The 2008 crash wiped out nearly 40% of Gen X's wealth overnight. For many of us, it felt like years of progress had suddenly just vanished. I remember logging into my 401k account at the time, and my heart just kind of sunk. But all I could do was just stare at the balance that was almost half of what it had been a week before. But what could I do about it? Friends of mine had just bought new homes. They thought they were making the right financial investment. Then bam, their home values plummeted by 30%. Suddenly, they owed way more on their homes than they were worth. And there were no desirable ways to get out of it. Some of us experienced lost jobs, layoffs, reduced hours, reduced salaries. During that time, I remember how everyone had constant job insecurities. Yet I do want to add, despite all of this, losing homes, retirement savings, jobs, Gen X did bounce back. In fact, we're the only generation that has fully recovered from the financial losses of 2008. Now, if that's not resilience, I don't know what is. Now, when people wonder why Gen X is so behind in their retirement, they just assume that we didn't plan well. But as you can see, there was so much for us to have to navigate without a clear compass. But here's what makes Gen X different. We've always been adaptable. We didn't get a roadmap for retirement. We had to figure it out on our own. And you know what? We had to figure it out for the generations that came after us as well. And despite all that was stacked against us, we're still standing. That's what sets us apart. And it's not too late to take control of your financial future, even if you feel left behind. It's not about how you start the race, it's how you finish. In part 2, I'm going to cover how Gen Xers are currently sabotaging their retirement. So please subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss that. Now, I know many of you have lived through these challenges that I covered in this video. I would love to hear which ones of them hit you the hardest. Drop me a comment below. I have an entire playlist of videos covering the topic of retirement planning. I'm going to link that right here. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.